When we talk about databases, we are aware that a database is a storage unit for some data. There are a different kind of databases present right now. In this course, we are talking about relational database. What does that mean? That means that the data is stored in tables, and those tables are somehow logically connected to each other. Of course, we could put just one table in a database or multiple ones which are not connected, but that would make no sense. When we talk about entities and attributes, think of an entity as a row in a table. An attribute is a column or property of that entity. Okay? So for example, in this representation of a table, we have only two rows or two entities. So the first entity would have an attribute with ID of 1, name of Mark, attribute phone number would be 555123, and it would have a country ID of 27. The same goes for the second entity in that table for n. When we talk about ERD, or entity relationship diagram, this is just a graphical representation of how the tables in a database are connected to each other. From the technical perspective, the tables are connected with primary and foreign key. More about that, we're going to talk on the real example. Just have in mind that primary key is a unique value and only one primary key can exist for one entity. So in our example, if ID would be a primary key, we couldn't have two entities with ID of 1. The connection between the tables or the relation can have different cardinality. In this example, we have two tables or two entities now, which are countries and capitals. And they have only one-to-one cardinality, which means one country can have only one capital. And in ERD, this will be represented by just a straight line. This is actually a not very good example because there are some countries that have multiple capitals. Just take, for example, South African Republic, right? It even has 3 capitals per se. A better example would be a person and identity card. One-to-many cardinality and vice versa. We can take an example of department and employees. This is an example from our HR schema. So a department can have multiple employees, but employee can work only in one department. In ERD, this is represented with a straight line and a crow foot on the other side. Many-to-many cardinality or relation is following. In our example, books and authors. There can be multiple books written by one author, and also one author can write multiple books. And in ERD, this is represented with a crow's foot on both sides. Let's go to our example. So I have my Oracle SQL Developer up and running, and I'm gonna show you the graphical representation of our HR schema. SQL Developer has a cool feature so it can graphically represent a schema automatically, and we can do that with following steps. Third file, data model, import, data dictionary. I'm gonna pick up my HR connection, pick up the HR schema. I'm gonna pick all the tables because I wanna represent all the connections between the tables. Go to next and finish. Couple moments later, SQL Developer is gonna present to us all of the connections that are on those tables, right? So let's take, for example, the table jobs, or just one entity jobs, and the employees. Over here, a job ID is a primary key, right? On the employees, job ID is a foreign key. That means that multiple employees can have the same job, but in the jobs table, there can be only one entity with the description, manager, developer, and so on. Let's check that by querying through the jobs and employees table. So I'm gonna make a new connection. On the HR, we're gonna select all from jobs. I'm gonna pin that. And I'm gonna select all from employees, just to make a comparison. Okay. So let's take Sheely For example, she has a job ID of PU clerk. And in that PU clerk, that means she's a purchasing clerk. And on the employees table, we can see that she's not the only PU clerk present, but in the jobs, there can be only one job ID present. This is a unique attribute, and only one entity can have one type of that job. I hope that makes a little bit clearer. And also on our diagram, we can see the relation is also represented by the line and the crow's foot. Just to mention for the exam, you could be presented with an ERD in some questions. This is just a help for you to make a quicker mental map of how some tables in the question are related to each other. Also, on the job, an ERD is in most cases created prior of creation of the actual database. So you have an ERD, and after that, you go create all the tables that are necessary for the database. This is it for this one, and see you in the next one.